The year is 1984. We have just seen a very strange little comedy documentary called This is Spinal Tap, and we're going to fix it. Let's cue that intro.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mirror Movie Universe podcast. I'm Nate, one half of the host of this shindig of a show. And across the aisle and across the country from me is my older brother, Dan, co-host of the show. Say hello, Dan.
Hey, everybody. I never think of anything fun to say here. I should think of more fun things to say, but hi, it's good to be here.
Hi, everybody. And today, as Dan pointed out in the intro to this thing, we're going to talk about This is Spinal Tap. Which is just a heck of a fun little film that we both like quite a bit. It's gonna be it's gonna be fun to talk about because in order to discuss what we like about the film and what we would fix like usual, we're gonna have to discuss what happens in This is Spinal Tap. And it's kind of a weird thing because simultaneously a whole bunch of things happen, but plot wise, there's not that much of a thing going on because it's a mockumentary and they're just following these people through their daily lives. So it's a mockumentary about this rock group, this fictional, kind of B-tier rock group from England called This is Spinal Tap that rose to prominence in the mid 60s and 70s and ended up as kind of like a glam rock kind of group, almost a Led Zeppelin kind of thing going on in the 80s. And it's kind of a satire of a bunch of the music documentaries that were very popular at the time. It follows them coming to America.
By the way, like, oh my gosh, there's a million of them.
Still are, but they've kind of shifted in. Shifted in tone and focus. Like, if you want to see a great parody of modern music, dramas and everything, you should watch Weird the Al Yankovic Story and all that kind of stuff. But at this time, This is Spinal Tap is the perfect satire for this sort of stuff. It follows this fake group as they come to tour America, I believe for the first time for them. And you got some interesting character dynamics going on. The main two that you're going to have to think about and remember are the guys named David and Nigel, who are the main two lead guitarist singers of the band. Nigel is completely just an idiot and does not understand how anything works in the real world. And it follows their antics as they are interviewed by the director of the documentary, who's just Rob Reiner, being Rob Reiner. And they are going across America, playing different gigs and more or less just screwing up everywhere they go. Yeah. David's wife or fiance or just girlfriend shows up and has a bit of a Yoko Ono part to play. They eventually break up due to the stress of all of this, and just before the end, they get back together. And there's a little bit of redemption, and it's quite nice. That doesn't sound like much, but along the way, there are great moments where they're playing a show and they are all supposed to come out of these pods that split open on stage, but one of them doesn't open and their bass player is stuck in it the entire time. And right before the end of the show, it bursts open and he's ready to play. And then he just kind of comes back in. There's a great bit which I was actually taught in drawing class in engineering school, where and we watched the clip of it where someone is they're drawing like a napkin sketch of Stonehenge, these big rock things, and they accidentally do 2 dashes for inches instead of feet, and so they're playing this epic tune about this, the druids in Stonehenge, and this tiny 1.5 foot tall little foam thing comes and lands in the middle of their stage. And there's, of course, lots more jokes that we'll talk about when we go through the likes, but that's essentially Spinal Tap in a nutshell. Dan, what do you like about Spinal Tap?
What is not to like about this movie? I love this movie. It is so good. I think, oh man. So a couple things, like joke wise, just to get out of the way. And then we can talk about other stuff. I think that there are a lot of jokes that you don't get talked about very much, right? Like everybody knows, oh, this goes to 11.
This one goes to 11.
You can see yourself in both sides. How much more black could it be? None more black, but
none more black. Yeah,
none more black. For me, I love one of the opening moments of it when they're talking about the different fake album covers. I think that is hilarious. just as a side note, if anybody wants to put that together as a poster, that would be the coolest poster. Intravenous Domino, The Gospel According to Spinal Tap, Shark Sandwich, and then Smell the Glove. Like, I love that so much. It's so funny. I love the bit where he's caught in the pod. That's one of my favorite bits of the whole thing. I love when Nigel is playing this beautiful melodic soft piano tune, and the director's like, oh, that's really great, what's that called? And he goes, Lick My Love Pump. Like, it's just
it's in D, which is it's really the saddest of all.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so good. And then at the end, when they're kind of breaking up, one of my favorite bits of the whole thing is when they're trying to talk about like what they're gonna do, and the lead guitar player is like, I've always wanted to record my songs with the London Philharmonic. Like they're gonna do this with an orchestra.
Or they were gonna do like a musical of like Jack the Ripper's life or something like that.
It's so Saucy Jack. Yeah.
Saucy Jack.
So good.
If you haven't seen Spinal Tap, go watch it. But they're idiots. And so all of these things sound ridiculous, but in context of these complete imbeciles,
yes,
it is so much better. It's lovely.
Such good acting. Such good acting. It's Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, Michael McKean, who have all gone on to do amazing things. This is kind of one of the first things they ever did. Amazing. Rob Reiner's in it. Basically, like you said, just being himself. His directorial debut, by the way. They didn't have a script. This movie is completely improvised. Which is like they knew what they were going to do, like in the scene, and they just talked. It's so good, and it really does give it that documentary type feel. One of my favorite, and the music is phenomenal, like phenomenal. One of my favorite things, though, because I went back and watched it again in preparation for this. This is a movie that if you're going to show someone, they have to actually watch it.
Yeah.
We're spoiled with so many comedy documentary type things. This is the first time it happened. Audiences, I don't think, really knew how to react to it. This is different than The Office. This is different than Parks and Rec. This is different than Modern Family. And there's a great, let me just give you an example of it. There's a great interview moment where they're asking the lead guitar player and the girlfriend about her relationship with the rest of the band.
Yeah.
The lead guitar player is like, oh no, everybody, they get along. Oh, there's so much love between them. If it was any one of these modern shows, it would have done a hard cut to
an cutaway.
He would have been like, oh, hater. And that would have been the joke. They don't do that. They zoom the camera in on her face, and you just see from that, just that subtle, like her face, it squinches up and she's like, oh, she's looking away. She's uncomfortable.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I saw that and I was like, this is amazing. They put so much subtlety into a comedy. It's incredible. Incredible.
It's not all subtlety though. They're like, they have some over the top stuff.
Absolutely over the top stuff. Yes. But I just thought it was so great because they don't go for the cheap, like, cutaway punchline.
Yeah.
They make you have to like pay attention and see what's happening. And then of course there's Stonehenge and there's the pods and there's the scene where they're going through the airport, all of that stuff. All right, I've rambled on long enough. What do you like about it, Nate?
So I love This Is Spinal Tap quite a bit. I didn't see it until I was in college. And I was going through a really rough year part of the way through college. And I don't know why, but like one weekend I decided to watch Platoon, and that just like took my mental state and just wrecked it even further down. And I was like moping around in my house, and one of my roommates was messing around with his bicycle. He got a new bicycle, and he points at it and he's like, because he had his shifters, and he's like, these go to 11. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, these go up to 11. Like, look, 11 right across the board. I'm like, what is that? And he's like, that's Spinal Tap. You never seen this? And I remember you talking about it from when we were kids, because I never saw it and you did. And I watched it, and it took my tail diving, nose diving mental state and going, it was funny as hell. I just, it's nonstop jokes, whether you want it to be or not, whether or not you're in the mood, it just gets you up there. It's fantastic to watch. My favorite joke in this whole shtick is not these go to 11. It's not, oh yeah, this is an anatomically correct skeleton on his shirt or any of those. It's something we haven't mentioned yet, and that is in the history of Spinal Tap, the band, the drummers keep dying.
Oh, I love it.
One of them chokes on his own vomit. One of them bursts. He like spontaneously combusts.
Yeah.
And they have this whole history of the drummers, which is just
they
great.
all die. One of them dies in a freak gardening accident. Like,
yeah, a freak gardening accident.
Great. Yeah.
And they're like, we never found out. And no, it's not even his own vomit he chokes on.
Yeah,
he chokes on someone else's.
You can't dust the vomit.
I love it. And I used to play drums in high school, and so I was like, I just thought it was hilarious that the drummers were kept getting killed. Also, it's really good at the mockumentary style. It does a really, really great job. It's not the first rock band mockumentary, but it does. It's the first one that's good. The first one, this is wild. I found out about this like last week and watched it in 1978. So like 6 years before this one, there was a documentary about a band called the Ruddles, which were just the Beatles, but it just parodied their history. And it's called All You Need Is Cash. And it was made in Britain, but it was made by like half of the Monty Python gang. It was like Eric Idle and a couple of the other guys. And like most of the cast of 70s SNL. It's like Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi and Bill Murray are in this thing just as bit parts. And George Harrison of the Beatles plays a bit part as like some financial guy that screwed over the Beatles or something. I can't remember. And I went into this thing, oh my God, this is going to be the best thing ever. And it's not that good. Like it's not that good because like they don't have any subtlety in it. And they do too many songs that aren't that funny. And so like this is not maybe the first one, but it's the first one that like got it real good. Like it captures that lightning in a bottle in a way that comedy legends, I mean, we're talking 70s SNL and Monty Python tried but and couldn't pull off.
Yeah.
Which I love. Also, and this is the last thing I love about this movie. You're talking about showing this movie to people for the first time. What I usually do is show them the trailer. Have you ever seen the trailer? Have you ever seen the trailer for This Is Spinal Tap?
Yeah.
It's Rob Reiner is sitting in a chair and he's like, listen, I'm working on this movie. It's called This Is Spinal Tap. It's got comedy. It's got drugs. It's got sex. It's got music. It's got all the things you want, but I don't have a trailer for it yet. So, and then it's like 5 minutes of like a documentary about like a cheese festival in Switzerland or something. And that's the trailer for This Is Spinal Tap. And it doesn't make it a damn lick of sense. I love it because it just comes out of nowhere like the rest of this movie does. I love it quite a bit. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to say no notes about this movie.
I know.
So This Is Spinal Tap, Dan. What do you fix? What do you make better about?
All right.
The best in its class, best of its kind.
It is amazing. This is so nitpicky, right? So when I first started, I rewatched it and I thought, what is the one thing they're missing? Yeah. Right. And I went back and I thought through it, and I thought, oh, you know what they don't do? They don't parody 80s music videos. Like that's such a miss. 80s music
like really
videos.
Terrible 80s music videos.
Yes, and there's so many of them, and they've got like the bad video effects and the weird transitions, and then they've got like the nonsensical stuff that's happening on screen. So I was like, that's like going to be
Safety
my
Dance and Once in a Lifetime by the Talking Heads. All the weird ones where it's just out there. Yeah, I can see that working in this.
Glam rock bands had terrible ones. So that was going to be my fix. But guess what? They made a music video in 1984. I have done tons of research. I cannot figure out why it wasn't included in the movie. I don't know if it was a promotional thing or what, but if you look up Hellhole, there's a music video for it in 1984, and it's hilarious.
Okay.
So good. Like Christopher Guest is running around in a Speedo and a sport jacket. This just makes no sense.
Like much of this film, yeah.
Well, I'm not going to do that. So here's my fix. And again, so nitpicky. There are some really great comedic legends in this movie who play bit parts. Fran Drescher's in it. Billy Crystal's in it. Billy Crystal's in it for all of like 15 seconds as a full mime And he makes the joke, mime is money, and then it cuts away. This film, though, has hours and hours and hours of deleted scenes, all of which are funny. It's under 90 minutes, so it's not costing us anything to put one back in. There's a great, oh my gosh, scene with Billy Crystal, look it up, where the limo driver comes up to him and is like, hey, do you know the band? This is Spinal Tap. Oh, do you? And they're working with this guy. And he goes on for like a minute and a half. Billy Crystal says nothing. Full mime, is miming everything perfectly. He's doing the rock band thing. He's doing oh, this guy. And then he gets to the end and he's like, the limo driver's like, oh, can you tell him that I'm waiting for him downstairs? And he's like, what am I, your secretary? Put that back in. It's so funny. It's so good. And it leaves the audience being like, wait, was that Billy Crystal? Like, what? Because he does the mime thing for like 90 seconds before he talks. It's absolutely hilarious.
That's great.
I know that it's super nitpicky, but I love it. I just want like a tiny little bit more of it.
Yeah, because like you look at films like Spinal Tap, which we're like, this was experimental. Like this was this was a risk for a studio to make and to produce, and it was massively successful. But you know, like they were probably not trying to push anything too far, and so. A lot of my
critiques was massively successful. I mean, critically, yes. Commercially, it was fine. It wasn't like a huge hit. I think it kind of gained a cult following afterward. But
that's freaking true. I mean, we're talking about it today. But the main thing for me coming out of it is like, if they pushed the envelope a little bit more, they could have still maintained the same success. You know, and I've never seen any of the deleted scenes for this film, but shoot, I'll go check them out. I'll put them. I'll see. I'll
just type it into the search bar, like Billy Crystal Spinal Tap. There's like 4 or 5 minutes of it. I just picked the funniest one. But yeah, check them out. They're really good.
I will. That sounds like a great time, honestly, because it's really short. I was surprised at how short
90 minutes. It doesn't feel like it, but wow.
Yeah. It was over really quickly. And my fix is also adding a scene.
All right, what's your scene? I want to know.
Okay, so my apart from the drummer thing, my favorite thing about this movie is bits of their history where they go back and they play a couple of old songs. That's basically all you need is cash. That movie I was talking about, that's all it is. It's like them parodying Beatles songs. But in this one, they've got like a flower power song that makes no sense, and it has got a terrible sitar solo in the middle. And it's got, oh God, the best parody of like early 60s rock songs called Gimme Some Money.
Yeah.
Which is it's like a love song where it's like kind of like I Want to Hold Your Hand, kind of, you know, early Beatles stuff. But the song's title and lyrics are just literally give me some money. And they're like, I'm looking for loose change, bad checks, anything. Give me some money. And it's great. I love those little interludes. And they only have like 2 of them. I would add one that would kind of connect it to a real rock and roll event. And that's what the only parts I liked about the failed attempt to do this before, All You Need Is Cash, are that they got real people to behave like the band was real. So like Mick Jagger and Paul Simon are both interviewed like for real in that fake documentary.
Wow.
And I would want something like that. It would be hard to get some like a real a rock, you know, legend to be in your Spinal Tap movie or whatever. So I would do a reenactment of a thing that really happened, and I think it would be kind of funny. So in real life, Eric Clapton was like the king of guitar in the late 60s in London, right? He was doing great things in Cream. People were spray painting Clapton as God on buildings. Like it was amazing. And he was playing at a show, and this guy in the front row asks him if he can come up and jam with the band. And he'd already arranged it with their manager or whatever. And he comes up and he plays this guitar song called Killing Floor, which Clapton had always thought he wanted to do, but it was way too hard for him. And this guitar, you know, player from the front row like plays it like crazy, like plucks the strings with his teeth and all of this crap. And it was Jimi Hendrix, right? And this is a true story. This really happened. And Clapton apparently afterwards was like totally dejected. Like his hands just go slack on his guitar. He walks off stage and he's just like, I'll never be as good as that. So I think it would be funny if they were in Spinal Tap talking about like, oh yeah, we ran into Clapton one time. And it's a follow-on to that. And Clapton's really sad. And they're looking at him like, oh, I bet I could beat him too. And Nigel just goes up on stage and plays terribly. And Clapton like gets his confidence back from watching Spinal Tap be terrible.
I love it.
And so like, oh yeah, we you know, they brag about it, you know, like, oh yeah, we've brushed hands with Clapton and all that. But in reality, they were so bad that it gave him his confidence back after he saw Hendrix play. Because the only connection they have for the rest of the movie to like real rock history is they visit Elvis Presley's grave.
Yeah.
And none of them can remember the lyrics to any of his songs.
Yeah, and they're trying to do harmonies and they're so bad.
It's bad. But yeah, I'd do that little thing to follow on that real event with Clapton and Hendrix and just have them be so bad that they give Clapton his mojo back. I think that would be funny. If you want to kill a drummer in that scene too, be my guest. But I want to see like one more insert from their past and make it be adjacent to a real event. Because I think that would be fun. But yeah, that's what
I absolutely love it. I mean, I think bottom line for both of us is if you haven't seen this movie, please go watch it. Like, I'm always going to say that, but please go watch it. It's so good.
If you're a fan of classic rock, especially, but even if you're not, it's just, you're just going to watch four imbeciles like run around. And if you've seen any of the new stuff like Bohemian Rhapsody, it functions retroactively as a parody of that kind of stuff. It's just great.
Yeah. And if you're like a child of the 90s, because I showed this to my wife, who's the same age as me, but we were watching it and she goes, oh, this is Together, which is an MTV movie about a boy band that's very, very similar. If you know what Together is and you're like, oh, I want to see that with hard rock, please check out This Is Spinal Tap.
Oh yeah. I have not seen that film. So I come at it from the other direction with that one from the 70s that wasn't so good. But Spinal Tap is the pinnacle. It's best in its class. It's funny. And as I just want to say one thing to the prospective viewer out there. Dan and I have listed off probably 47 jokes from that movie.
Yeah.
In our review. We have scratched the surface.
Yes.
There's so much. It's like Airplane. There's like a joke every 30 seconds. And so if you
gotta pay attention, like this is not a movie to scroll on your phone and like just kind of space out. Like there is some subtle stuff that you gotta like be watching for.
Oh yeah. But it's great. Best in its class.
All right, everybody. Well, that's a wrap up for us. So what do you want to fix? Do you want more Billy Crystal in this movie? Did you know that he was in this movie? Do you want to see them talk about Eric Clapton and tie it to some real world events? Please sound off in the comments. We want to hear from you. And as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, tell Danny's wrong. And see you later.
Bye.